Today's guest on the podcast is McCaleb. She is an award-winning author. She's also a business owner and CEO of Improv Team Culture. She does a lot of corporate trainings in the Treasure Valley. Many of you may know her. She has a lot of awards, been a recognized accomplished under 40, Woman of the Year, and recently made the Power List for workforce education. We're really excited to have her on today, McCaleb. Megan, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
You are coming straight off. You do corporate events and trainings and leadership, and you were just at Power Engineers, right next to us, a building we just finished.
Yeah, and then they're letting me come hang out at Top Golf next.
Let's talk about how cool that building is first. Let's give a plug to BVA.
Let's do it.
How was it?
It's beautiful. I made sure they knew it. While I was in there, I called attention to the beautiful state-of-the-art building. It was on the second floor in their training room, and it's beautiful.
It's really cool. I have chased them to move them into one of our buildings for 15 years.
Oh.
And finally, we were able to do a building for them, and they combined from 3 different locations in one. And I think it's going really well. So how was it?
It was awesome. Yeah, it was all their admins and support staff, and they were awesome. They went right into it because it's improv. So I know people are nervous when they hear they're about to do improv
I'm nervous.
Yeah, you should be. It'll be fun. It's approachable and it's accessible. But everyone seemed very willing and full participants, and it was great.
Let's start with your journey and then get to where you're at today, which is you're doing corporate trainings, you're training people to be better leaders and how to have better teams and corporate culture. And but I don't know you, so this is gonna be fun.
I know anything goes with me. So
Most of the time, it's like, I got some inside stories or whatever. I don't have that with you. So tell us how you got here.
Literally here in my orange Jeep Wrangler, I drove here. Oh, you mean?
I read you're a Jeep gal.
I am a Jeep
Let's
gal.
just start right there.
I know. Yeah, that's really the best place to start. I wanted one as a kid. My life goals included do the type of thing that allows me to have the things that I want, and the Jeep Wrangler is one of them. But
I am a Jeep guy.
Nice. Yeah.
There's something about them. I bought my first one. I was in residency, and one of my good friends, Tad Kelly, wanted to go to Moab. And I wanted one so bad, and I had absolutely no money. Like, I was so poor I couldn't afford ramen and gas from my 1970 Nissan Sentra.
Oh, I had a Nissan Sentra at one point too.
2-door.
It was a 2-door.
It was 2-door. Yeah. Gray vinyl seats.
Yeah.
Air conditioning didn't work.
Oh, no.
Manual handles.
Yep.
I had a hunting dog that tried to get a squirrel in the front end of it.
Ooh.
And so it had like all these battle scars from where he scratched up the car.
Yeah. I like
that thing was awesome though.
I
never did anything but just put gas in it. I don't think I ever changed the oil because I couldn't afford it.
Well,
but I got a Jeep.
Like it worked.
So I got a Jeep.
Moral of the story.
And I still have my original Jeep. I keep it in McCall, and it's like I was in it this weekend. It's got 12,000 miles on it, and I bought it in 2004. So 20-year anniversary.
Wow.
Of it.
Oh my gosh. Happy birthday, Jeep.
Yeah.
Other than that, how I got here, I'm actually a Boise native. There's not many of us around here, but I was just born right here in town. I've lived here my whole dang life.
Where'd you go to school?
Capitol High
School.
Scoegs. Yeah. I graduated in 99. My parents, my mom and stepdad actually live in the house I was born and raised in still. Like, a lot of unheard of stable things in my life, which is good because a lot of things are very not stable in my life beyond that.
And then did you go away at all, or did you?
No, I've traveled a lot for work. I never actually moved away. And I worked in corporate. I worked at Washington Mutual Bank until it was no longer Washington Mutual Bank back in the day. And so I worked in corporate for about 15 years with a couple different jobs and did comedy on the side and learned that as like a fun art form. And then I started traveling more.
So how do you just like start doing comedy on the side? Let's.
Yeah. By accident. I do both improv and stand-up. And initially when I learned improv, my older brother, who had been part of an improv troupe, he actually used to be part of a comedy club at Brigham Young University. And then they started a troupe here in town, and they wanted more female players, and so they invited me, and I had no idea what they were talking about. And
What's a troupe?
A troupe
I'm
is
like-
yeah, that's all right. We're getting you all
I'm
the
like-
basics. This is Improv 101, baby. So it's a group dynamic, like improv as opposed to stand-up, which is a one-man show, set up punchline, self-deprecating. Improv is usually this collaborative, small group dynamic. It's on the spot. Every scene is built off of audience suggestion that we get right in the moment, and then we just have this framework that we know we've built that we can take any suggestion.
Then it's
and
all
trust it.
spontaneous and-
Yeah, so we have that comfort.
It's like
safety
stand up
net.
in a group.
Yeah, similar. And it's a little higher vibe. It's usually more positive versus the sometimes more crass negative vibe. But yeah, definitely it's a group of comedians
Okay,
working
cool.
together.
So
Yeah.
you loved that.
I loved it. I immediately was like, what have I been missing out on my life?
Were you good at it right away?
Oh, yeah. I didn't, yeah. I have always
Humility.
kind of been- I
Humility
know.
is like,
I would say I wouldn't
your
always
weakness?
have been this I feel like I'm finally feeling confident, so this was just great timing for your podcast because I've been down in the dumps for a while now. It is one of those things that felt like home
Yeah.
to me because I was a goofball growing up, the youngest of 6 in a blended household, and my biological father was not around. Like I had a lot of things that I didn't know were like my wounds, and I felt at home with a group of comedians because that's where we talk about the hard things, and it makes life more manageable when you can have levity.
talk about that as a form of therapy.
Oh my gosh, it's like a natural therapy. Like if we don't
So
talk
your
about
point
things,
is you're able to talk about things you normally
yes.
wouldn't talk about and
that's exactly.
feel comfortable exposing things that are just tough, right?
Yeah, that's the
with
magic
a group
of
of people
comedy.
that'll,
Yep.
yeah.
And it's a safe place to play with it. And like the deeper the better. Like it would sometimes be very morbid topics, and like nothing is really off limits in comedy because we know our audience are all human beings who have experienced different things. So we play a lot with grief and loss and fears and anger, and all of the big heavy emotions get to be the fuel for how we connect and then get that relief that comes from laughter. So it probably was a natural fit because I've had like my own issues as a kid that I didn't realize of, and then into my adult life just hit different road bumps that made me go through struggles that I liked that relief and that connection that I got with comedy, and I like to be a vessel for other people feeling that relief.
Not to pry too deeply.
Do it. I
Had
mean,
you-
I have weird stories.
I don't-
They're saying you don't know anything, and I'm like, you guys didn't give him any type of.
I know good stuff.
There's scary stuff in my background. I should be in prison. No, I'm just kidding.
Award-winning
It's all that kind of
author. I know a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Let me just tell you. Let me ask you this: had you tried other things, therapy that was not as effective as this? And can you compare and contrast with your own personal experience?
Yeah, I've been to a lot of therapy, various types of counseling.
Yeah.
Heavy duty. Like I've done EMDR. I've gone to
What's EMDR?
ART. I don't remember what the acronym means, but it's essentially like an actual process where you're holding like electronic panels that they like.
Electromuscular.
It's
Maddie.
every
We got Matt. Maddie's going to be
day.
part of this
I know.
podcast too.
Show us-
EMDR. Let's look this.
Electromagnetic desensitization and reprocessing. Okay, yeah, that's right. Eye movement. I was like, I know there's something with eye movement. Because you actually kind of go into like it's like a
REM thing.
yeah, a REM state while you're awake, and your memories allow themselves to pin back to a pain point that you might not have realized was there, where you had a trauma. And then you go, oh, now I know where the wound is and I can heal it. And it's really trippy and also very heavy. So doing traditional therapies and stuff I think are super valuable, and I also feel like just connecting with humans and processing with humor is just a way to make it more bearable and to move the process quicker.
It's fascinating.
It's pretty awesome. I actually thought I should get a degree in therapy once, or like whatever it's called, psychology degree, or become a licensed therapist, because sometimes when I do improv workshops, I would like trigger people unintentionally because it's such a safe place for humans to just show up how they are. And all of us have so many different things going on that it might, like asking for someone, remember a time as a kid when you had a favorite toy or something? And someone told me once in a workshop that they were like, when I thought of my favorite toy, it was the stuffed bear I used to hold on to while I cried in the closet and my parents were arguing. I was like, oh, crap. So I just learned how sensitive it was and how powerful it was that people then were willing to share with me, like their heart, because they felt safe to. And I was just like, ooh, this is yummy. I could talk so fast for so many hours about this.
Well, I think it's really good because I think it's so, I think there are a lot of people that we all know in our personal spheres or the world, or I was an ER doc for a long, long time. I mean, it's just nice to have lots of tools and options because it's not the same for everybody. So when you hear about something that may be a little different that's worked for other people, I think it's great to sit and talk about it and how does it work. And and has improv, this whole idea, this training, this corporate thing, is it more, seems more popular right now?
It feels like finally there's more consistency for me personally, but it is very trendy. It actually started hitting like Forbes magazine like 15 years ago. So some people are pretty slow to adopt because it sounds scary. People are worried they have to be funny or they're going to feel put on the spot or like they're not spontaneous enough. And they think of it as it's this performance art that only certain people can do. And the way that I see it, and most of us improvisers see it, is it's actually a way to live your life. We're performing in scenes, magnifying the human state of being. So the tools as a better self-awareness, mindset strategy for leadership communication, it is just so impactful because it's simple, it's fun, and it's accessible for anybody.
Talk us through, you just finished one. Like, what are your goals going into it, and how do you, are some groups different than others, or?
Not as much. They all think they're different.
Do they?
Yeah.
Of course. Everyone wants to
They do.
Well, it might work for other people, but wait till you meet our group.
Oh, man, yeah, exactly. And what I do find is it works the best, or I have the most fun, when it is a challenging environment. So when it's people that have very complicated jobs or heavy workforce dynamics type of things, like my most common recurring clients are lawyers, engineers, and healthcare and first responders. And what I noticed because I've done tons, I've done youth groups, I've done women's retreats, I've done church groups, I've done like all sorts of different things over the years, and it works everywhere because it's fun and simple. It's the game changer when you're in a dynamic where people have tough decisions to make, or life and death things like healthcare people. First responders are showing up to someone's worst day nearly every call they're taking. And lawyers need to have a buy-in and no trust factor if they want a jury of strangers to look at them as a human and not someone who's way smarter than them. So seeing the way that those tools really kind of level the playing field and help us to show up with this more positive dynamic, especially when things are hard, that's what I love about it, is showing people it's right here, it's 2 words. I mean, the core is yes and it's 2 words that launch you into a space of collaboration and leading with empathy.
It sounds awesome.
Can you tell that it's I'm on cloud nine. I'm in a sleep so good tonight.
I think you can up that pitch right there, and you just sell that thing because it's awesome. So are you? Tell us about your business then. Is it you? Are you sole proprietorship that you have? Tell us a little bit about that.
I've had it as an LLC forever, if we're talking literal logistics, but I started about 15 years ago. It's just mostly been me. I do have a part-time employee that lives in Albuquerque who's also done improv for many years, so she kind of is like a ringer sometimes for me. And then I have a virtual assistant, but it's mostly me showing up and traveling around when I get to. Sometimes it's virtual, but yeah, it's been one-man show for
So super
the whole
flexible.
Oh, yeah.
And that's awesome. I'm looking at a couple of things on the notes I have here. So, did you feel vulnerable at first going into all these settings? I'm just thinking, I think of our company, right? We have a lot of type A, just,
Yeah, I bet.
guys guys and gals that probably just compartmentalize stuff just because that's a very effective way to live life. And
Is it though?
Well, I'm speaking
I'm gonna challenge you.
speaking from someone that I'm really good at that. Always have been.
Yeah.
I think it was like the ER, right? Because you walk into a shift. I did mostly nights. You have horrible things happen.
Oh yeah, I can't imagine.
And a lot of the real horror, there's the horrible medical things. You have death. That's where people die. You have diagnoses of cancer. That's where it happens a lot of times because that's where you get your first scan. You get your first, and not only do you have horrible things, but you don't have all the information yet, which can be terribly frustrating for families sometimes. Because when you walk in a room and say, "Hey, I'm not sure what this is, but I know you have a brain tumor," I'm not sure what this is, but I know you have nodules in your lungs. Very dissatisfying because, well, what do you mean you don't? You know what I mean? And then there's follow-up. And so you have all these experiences, and those aren't the hard things. The real hard things are the social things, right?
Yeah.
Like you have the single mother who comes in the middle of the night who you know what the truth probably is, and you're doing all the right reporting and everything, but you send them back out into situations that you're like, oh my gosh, that person's leaving tonight with those kids, and it just rips your heart out, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you go from heavy stuff
most
of the time to like going home and seeing your kids and
sure.
having the next day. So I think you got really good at just kind of like shutting it off, open it back up. And so I think that trick has helped me, and it's a very effective way to live.
I have no doubt.
You just argue with me because I think it's a very...
No, and I think it's I think it's important and vital for you to function.
Yeah.
And then that is what a lot of people in extreme industries have to do to even get through the day.
Yeah.
And then at some point, at least what I'm learning, especially now, because the other half of my life has, in the past few years, transformed into being a speaker coach for like high achieving leaders who really want to tap into their personal stories to stand out. Like, of course I use improv, but hearing where people are at, where they had not had the ability to navigate through those things that had been kind of tucked away for a lot of years, eventually like kind of
You warning me?
explodes. Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to freak you out, but maybe we could start working through things now so it's not as explosive for you. And it is.
Matthew, am I ever explosive? He's my son-in-law.
No comment.
It's
No comment.
it's not necessarily the outward explosive. Well, and the thing is it's not. It's like there's just sometimes people don't ever take the opportunity or realize there could be some processing to just relieve some of that buildup of the really horrific things that are seen. Like first responders, I spent a lot of time actually managing FEMA grants at one point for 5 years, managing volunteer firefighter recruitment and retention programs all over the country.
You know, I will say to make sure that, like, I think everyone's jobs are hard. Like, I think there's a lot of people that serve other people and they're hard.
Yeah.
But like first responders, it's different because when I get you, you're prepackaged. So even though I'm dealing with heavy stuff on the back end, they're on the front end, right?
Oh yeah.
So it's like they're walking into these charge situations where they're not packaged yet. It's the best way I can put it. And when they come to the hospital, they're kind of already on a gurney in a warm blanket on them.
Sure.
They might be bleeding and dying, but they're out of their home and they're out of the situation, or if it's trauma, it's just I feel for those guys. It's a lot.
Yeah, that's something that was very eye-opening to me because that was just right around when I was starting to get pretty active in doing team building workshops with Improv. Was while my day job at the time was managing grants for firefighters. So I would play around at these conferences that I was part of and do some little simple exercises and get them laughing and sharing, and then a lot of them would start getting emotional, which they'd be like nervous about or embarrassed, and then they'd kind of like give me a hard time about it and then later want to talk because it just like gives them that human tether to the feelings that like they want to process in a positive way without looking weak.
It's awesome. Talk to me a little. You said a minute ago that you're also training leaders to do what again?
To be better speakers. Like some of them, initially I got into public speaking coaching because people were like, help me write a speech. Can you help me be funny? And some of those very surfacey things. And then I started to recognize as the layers were coming back that a lot of people had stories like they'd never shared before, or like really impactful, transformative things in their lives and stuff that maybe had some shame around it, or all sorts of things, right? So then they would share these stories, and then I would be able to see exactly how it went to the thing they teach, like the work they do.
The connection.
Yeah, and show them like this story is actually what would really draw more people in for your business because they're going to see that you get it. And so that's really taken on a life of its own because especially I tried doing cohorts, which they've been pretty successful, but mostly women. And so when I've had guys that want to coach, they are not wanting to be in a group. The men want to be by themselves, the C-suites, the leaders, like the people who have been like, they've got some things they're dealing with and they don't want anyone else to see it, which I did not expect. And so this is kind of a fascinating new season of hearing their stories, and then I get to be the safe place where they let it all out, let it rip, and then we start picking out which parts of their stories really make them so passionate about what they do, and then they're like, whoa. So they do show up whether they're speaking on a huge stage, not everyone wants to do that, but it's how do they show up and really influence for good in a small
That is
group.
fascinating.
Isn't it? It's so fun.
Because you would think, listen, everyone's different, but you would think that would be part of a natural storytelling to make you successful, is drawing upon whatever raw emotions are there from lessons you've learned and stories and experiences you've had, to then tell your story to be a positive influence on your marketing and your brand and everything.
Yeah. It seems like it'd be natural. It's not very obvious to some people. And especially, like, we've got some business leaders in town who I won't say their names, but like company owners, like one of them is a pretty gruff guy that actually he runs a construction company here in town, so you may know him. And he came to me because he's like, I want to talk, I want to share my story and some of the family struggles they had. And he was like, I'm afraid to cry on stage. I don't want to look weak. And I was like, dude, that's exactly what will look strong is the emotional intelligence. And I'm like,
I think difficult situations, just being vulnerable is, I think that it can be the game changer in almost every situation if you can just learn how to let vulnerability navigate you through whatever you're going through. Or just people love it.
I do. That's what makes it feel safe and approachable. Like, for us to see our leaders like that, I remember as a young woman in a mostly male, whatever, everything's male dominated. Is any industry not male dominated?
Improv.
I don't know. I had mostly guys.
Did you?
They invited me because they wanted more female participants.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
anyway.
I was guessing.
Yeah, unfortunately, like even in stand-up, because I do stand-up comedy too, I'm going to tangent for a second. When you go and you're like the token woman on the lineup, they will be like, our next comedian is a woman. And I'm like, well, every other comic isn't brought up. Our next comedian is a man. Like, it's so bizarre. I know I was going somewhere with that before, but when I was the young woman in banking, and my bosses were almost always men, and one of them was very adamant that we leave our personal life at the door, like still very like old school style. And I was like, that's just not super helpful. I like to know what's going on with my team because I want to support them if they need a day off because their dog died or something, like things that would come up. And I'm like, we can't not be our best self, like bringing ourselves in our entirety is what makes standout employees, when they feel heard and seen and not, less than if they have a bad day.
Yeah. I always find it so when you talk about that, I grew up in healthcare and almost all leaders are women.
Okay, I was going to say actually with like nurses and stuff. Yeah, so you are right. There probably is.
Even like in the hospital and in departments. And so it was
in leadership and stuff.
Even in leadership.
Okay.
And it was weird for me.
All right.
Because I don't think that way. But then I'm telling you, then I got to the business world, and it is exactly opposite. Then you look at financial institutions, banking institutions, you look at construction, engineering. You go down the list of kind of architects. I mean, there are some women leaders and CEOs, but it's totally different. So it comes up a lot more, and I always think, oh, that's weird because
right, I can see
most of my leaders were.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm glad that I had that experience because I think I just think it is different. But I think I attributed that to healthcare because it was always very, very strong women leading.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, that is an industry where like that nurturing, like that vibe, I mean, I could see why that would be a place where lots of women are drawn to.
Talk about stand-up.
It's fun.
Why did you like it? It seems so. I listen to Joe Rogan a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So he talks about it a ton.
Oh, yeah.
And so everything I kind of know is just listening to him because I didn't know a lot about the business and the work and effort and time.
A lot.
And the way they get a bit and then they go trial it and test it and it turns into this. It's fascinating.
It's hard. Yeah, it is. And so I'd already been doing improv for a few years before I tried stand-up. And the same type of thing. I was actually watching my friends do an open mic here in town, and one of them called me up as the next comedian. And I had nothing prepared. I wasn't expecting it. It was a 3-minute set, and I was like, oh my gosh. So I just went and told some weird story about whatever my last trip was for work that week and got some laughs. And I was like, okay, well, I realize I am like naturally a humorous person and a good storyteller, so I just chalked it up to that. Then I was like, okay, this is interesting. And I actually took some classes about it and read books about like how do you take your premise, what are the rule of threes, the punchline. There's framework, just like with improv, just like with most businesses, there's a framework that when followed delivers. And then finding your audience, like if he's saying make a bit and then you try it on different audiences. I know who my audience is going to resonate. Like midlife women are going to eat up my material because it's mom life. It's the things that happen to your body when you've had 5 babies. It's what's divorce like. It's trying to date. Well, you know, my personal things will resonate with a certain audience. Whereas if I hop into a club and do a guest set and it's like a college town, they're not going to get it. And I will feel like a giant failure.
I just love how intentional it is.
It has to be. It's very personal.
Like the business it is. Is it?
Absolutely.
Is it? It's also super vulnerable, right? Because most people share, like, again, things that you just mentioned a couple, like aging and
that's why I love it, because I'm like, I get to talk about all the stuff people are uncomfortable about. In fact, that's what they want.
Isn't that hard?
It's freeing. It is at first, because people can be pretty critical and judgmental, and I kind of have learned to not let it faze me as much, because the reward of it is when you get the people afterward who will like whisper a little something that resonated with them, that made them feel seen, even from the audience. And there's nothing that beats that kind of connection.
Your point is, like, some of the stuff that is sensitive or even taboo or whatever that people want to talk about and are feeling insecure about, it all of a sudden it's like, oh, she's talking about that.
Yeah. And that's why we
and
laugh.
That must mean she feels something I'm feeling, and
totally.
That feels good to hear someone else talk about it. And I just laughed about it when normally I cry about it or whatever.
Well, yeah, and think about, why do you laugh at it? It's because you've been there.
Yeah.
You get it. And so that's where connection happens, is when it's true. It's all rooted in some kind of truth. Yeah, we stretch it a little bit, depending on what the bit is. But I loved it. And then that was one of those things that's very peripheral for me, because to be a full-time comedian is not very lucrative until you get to a certain level. And it's like not conducive to me like having a lot of kids and not being able to travel and do a lot of different things. So just schedule-wise. So it's something for me that I just get to cherry pick from, and occasionally get to do really awesome gigs or like corporate parties, or like I recently opened for Kevin Nealon from Saturday Night Live,
Really?
who was here in town, and I was like, oh my gosh.
I saw he was coming, so
Yeah,
you opened for
I
him.
totally last minute got invited to open because his opener couldn't come, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is my time.
So how long was your
I got
set?
20 minutes.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And how'd it go?
It was great. Yeah, it was.
Did you kill it?
Perfect. Yeah, his audience is totally my audience. Like, they were just the right flavor for my type of material, and he's just as much of a gem as you would hope. And it was amazing to like also see, like, in the green room, we hung out for like a half hour just chatting. He was asking me about Boise and my kids, and we were sharing a bowl of fresh berries, and he was talking to me like a peer, and I was like, I feel like I have like done something right in my life to have some kind of cool moments like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you mentioned your kids. Mm-hmm. Tell me about them.
Yeah, they're awesome. I have a lot of them. So the book is actually written about the first kid I had, but that was out of a wedlock in high school, and I placed her for adoption. But we're now reunited. So the short version is, placed her for adoption, reunited many years later. She's actually having a second baby here in August, so I'm actually a grandma. And then I have 4 others that I'm raising with my now ex-husband. I have a 17-year-old, almost 17-year-old boy, 11-year-old girl, and then 9 and 7 boys.
So you're busy.
Very busy. And they freaking love my job. Like, I work from home, so they don't really know what it's like for like me to leave and go have a 9-to-5 type of a thing. So they was like, why are you always on calls, and where are you going? But sometimes they get to tag along to events, and they're just like, whoa, this is cool. It's pretty awesome.
So I saw your book when I was prepping.
Yeah.
Just came out.
No, it's been a little. I reissued it.
Okay.
So I did a second edition. I originally published it actually in 2015, I think.
Oh, okay.
A while ago. And then whatever, life happened. And then I ended up reissuing a second issue with some updates. And then so I could change my name back to my maiden name. It had my former name on it. And I was like, I don't want to keep selling this book with a past name on it. So went through that rigmarole. So it recently re-released and has some fresh updates in it, as well as the original content.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like incredible. Adoption is we adopted 2 of our children.
Oh, yeah?
And it is like, seriously.
It's a lot of feelings on all sides.
Yeah, but it's like, it's one of the most beautiful, pure, it's just, I mean, I just think of my 2 daughters and life without them, and life without, like, I don't know, it's just, it's a very pure gift that is just so, you can't describe.
Yeah.
I have 2 biological kids, and then we had a period where we just wanted more, we couldn't.
Yeah.
And then and then adopted our 2 little ones, and they're not little now. They're beautiful girls. They're birth sisters, different fathers, same mother.
Oh.
And this, my older kids have heard me say this, but you love them more than your biological kids, because they come, you're just like, you were an underdog, and it's just so awesome. And
Oh, wow.
anyway, it's cool.
I love
it's
it.
It's a beautiful gift. That's cool. And you reunited.
Yeah, we did. I met her right before her senior year of high school. It was at her decision. We'd had a semi-open adoption, so we'd get letter exchanges once a year. And we actually reunited the same week that I had filed for divorce after a 16-year marriage. So I was like feeling a lot of things. And my kids at the time were 10, 4, 2, and 10 months. And so I was just like, whoa, I was feeling the extreme blessings of this joy, because she grew up in an amazing household, was given a guitar as a child. Like, she has songs on Spotify. She writes original music. And the music she was writing around that time became just like this incredible infusion of love and hope while I was, my world was crashing down around me in other ways. And I'm very good friends with her parents, who live actually here in town now. And it's pretty remarkable to see how the journey continues, and big feelings will come up, and then we talk through them and make sure everyone feels supported. And we're very close friends and talk nearly every day now, and I get to see pictures and videos of the grandbaby all the time, and can't wait to have another one. It's crazy.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's cool. I don't even know how long we going here.
I think this is going to be a 14-hour episode. I heard we were like going for a world record or something.
All right. They've gone long today. I'm talking too much. What's next for you?
I feel like I have this little saying. I'm just going to say it's MFG because it involves a curse word, but MFG is Mother Effing Global, which is a thing that I've always told myself that I
Mother Effing Global.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know why,
We're getting
but
good.
we're getting to the juicy stuff. Years ago, I just feel my personal little world. I just always have felt like my heart connects to the world, and that maybe sounds cheesy, but after going through the types of trials I have in my more recent season, I sort of feel like the dust has finally settled, and all the layers of crust of things I have endured have put me to where I'm like today. Like, my what's next is I finally feel like, oh, I'm Megan again. I'm the me that I put a lot of other faces on because I thought I had to be a certain way, and all the different roles I played, and very freshly feel like I understand my big vision again, and it's really to help connect people through improv and better storytelling and be an influence for good any way I can with leaders around the world. But I just really love the idea of taking these little ideas and making them as big and connecting as possible. And I think that's what's next, is stuff that's like way big that I've dreamed about for so long and just kept grinding away, and it's all finally blossoming.
We need positive so desperately too.
Yeah.
And connection.
Mm-hmm.
I think the world's disconnected in so many ways.
Yeah.
We're disconnected because of the media and phones.
Mm-hmm.
We're disconnected because of disagreements over politics and
everything.
every single thing else in life.
Yeah. It's spicy
It just
out
seems like
there.
there's very little common ground, and so anything that can pull people together and be positive and make people laugh and feel and do stuff, it's got to be super rewarding.
It is in ways
It's gotta
like
be
I can't even-
MFG.
It is. And I feel cheesy because I cry so much at my events, like, because I just feel that connection. I see the way people change even right before my eyes. Like, they sit up a little taller. There's energy that shifts, and the common ground thing you said, like, one of the games that I end on is a mind meld game that we take random words and we find common denominators, and it's fun and silly, and then we see how that applies with, if we both come from two vastly different perspectives, what's the quickest way we can find common ground? And it is absolutely like the biggest joy that I can take something so
What are
fun.
some common themes from that? What are the common grounds you find in your groups you
They
teach?
just simply will activate the awareness that all of them, like this group that I was with, had about 85 people in it, and we went through this little process of recognizing that from the time they were a baby till when they were in this room together today, they've each had all these different experiences, religious upbringing, political influences, different family dynamics, different everything, different places they were born. And to see the power in how much that gives us to work with is glorious, instead of immediately looking like, well, we want to take each other's legs out from under us. So they're really super simple, but I mean, it's not always that most tangible thing, because like, for example, the mind meld game is taking very random words, and it ended up on a Shrek movie relevance. Like, we started with talking about, you know, 2 random words, and I think it was cheese and sleep were the first 2 words that were randomly said.
Oh, donkey.
And then
You got to oh, donkey with that?
Exactly. It's somehow, and then you just go, what brings those words together? Now those 2 words, now those 2 words. And then eventually they say the simultaneous word, and everyone cheers, and we're all part of it. And it's just like, get us out of our heads and get us into our hearts. Now that's the quotable of the day. Out of our heads and into our hearts, Tommy.
That we all need to sprinkle a little of that on everywhere in the world, right?
Because it'll look different for everyone. Like, the framework is play, and then everyone has a different dynamic they go home to. But if they see the example is like, now I replace this activity where we talked about pizza toppings with whatever my husband's opinion is on XYZ topic, now I can approach it more willingly instead of being like, nah, I don't like that. Like, it's very simple, and it's different for everybody what their personal takeaway is.
Doesn't seem to be as much kindness in the world. I think people being kind, that like just like...
There's a lot of hurt people. They're just grumpy, and they just, I think people, maybe they have forgotten what kindness can be, or we're like wanting to justify who's had it worse. So I don't know what it is, but...
Have you been around, like, I've got a couple people that I'm around every once in a while, and when I'm with them, just like doing normal daily activities, watching how they interact with just random normal people, I'm just like, you are really kind.
Yeah.
You're a good person. You just like care about all these people you're around. So dang.
Do you try to be that way?
I try.
Yeah, okay.
Dang, it's inspiring, because you're like, I need to do that more. I sometimes get in my own way, because you got like 3 things going on all the time. What's next? And you're just kind of, here's where I'm going. And I think those people that are examples of that to me they must have a lane that is just, I'm going to be present. I'm going to be aware.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be kind, and I'm going to try to influence and make the world a better place. And I need a better lane for that.
I would suspect some of those people have been hurt in ways that they don't want to perpetuate. I mean, the more I talk to people, because when you start telling weird stories, like my stories of like all the things I've gone through, it is a magnet for people to unload to me, which I think is lovely. Like, people will just whisper their darkest secrets, right? And when people have these wounds, a lot of genuine kindness comes from people going, I don't want to make someone feel that way. And so I always wonder, like, I'm sure there's some people that naturally are. Yeah, I'm sure some people naturally are just like joyful, and that's definitely the case. And then I do think that some people are incredibly intentional about that because of how they've had to endure certain things, and they just want to stop the cycle of yuck by intentionally being like, you know what, I don't have to do that. Like, someone laid on the horn behind me the other day as I was pulling into Starbucks. I was like, I thought she was turning to the gas station. Whatever. Lays on the horn like way longer than was necessary. And then she ended up behind me in Starbucks. So of course I bought her Starbucks, and I was like, hey, can you just pass a little message that I hope she has a great day? Because I don't want to take that negativity of this woman laying on the horn at me.
You could have flipped her off and said, do you know I'm MFG for crying
out
loud?
Do you realize who I am? Do you see the words on the back of my Jeep Wrangler? I'm kind of a big deal here in our community. No. And I just, like, anything negative, I'm like, nope, I'm going to just put so much love on that they are not going to know what hit them. And I think that a lot of people, at least from my experience of hearing these stories,
that reminded me
crazy.
of a pretty funny ER story.
Oh, yeah? Tell me.
So I was working evening shift, going into night, busy. And so you're always, one of the hard things in an ER is you come into a room and you've got to kind of socially assess the situation. Like, what's the real story, right? Because you, as much as you would like to spend a really long time figuring out the story, because you have so many things going on at one time, you kind of got to get to the story quickly, right? Yeah. So sometimes, you get good at sitting on a chair and not standing and connecting and saying, okay, what can I do for you tonight? And sometimes the magic of just asking that question, you'll find out it's a doctor's note. They don't really have a thing, or it's anyway.
Yeah.
I walk into this room and I'm like, and the guy is strapped to a board that the EMS brings him in on, and I walk in and the first thing he says to me is like, all I wanted was a cheeseburger. Oh. And I'm like, hey sir, I didn't get a chance to talk to the paramedics. You know, where do you hurt? You're on a board, you know, are you okay? Tell me what happened. And he just said, all I wanted was a cheeseburger.
Oh my goodness.
And so to go back and forth, there's probably a comedy routine behind this.
100%.
But I keep asking him very thoughtful doctor questions, and all I get back is, all I wanted was a cheeseburger. So finally I'm like, okay,
Does someone order a cheeseburger?
tell me about the cheeseburger, right? Because okay, I'm not going to get where I'm going. I give up.
Yes.
Tell me about the cheeseburger. And he's like, I was coming home from work and I was hungry, and so I pulled into a McDonald's, and this happened in Boise.
Oh.
I pulled into McDonald's and I wanted a cheeseburger, and the person in front of me in line was giving the person at the drive-thru window a hard time, and they wouldn't move. And they clearly were arguing, and they were having a bad day, and they were upset. And all I wanted was, he kept just going back to this, I want a cheeseburger. And then I'm like, well, I'm not getting it still. How did you end up in the ER on a backboard and with paramedics? He's like, well, I guess I lost my temper, and I finally just decided to push him out of the way. I said, okay, now we're getting somewhere. So he literally, in his truck, pushed the person's car out of the way to get his cheeseburger. And then the person came back, bashed in his window, and assaulted him at the drive-in window.
Oh my word.
And so it's this great story, and I'm like, I walk out after this 25 minutes, and my partner's like, what's going on in there? And I'm like, all the guy wanted was a cheeseburger.
Dude,
There's always more to the story.
Such a great story. Yeah, I mean, that's like, you finally listened. There was no point
finally
trying
listened.
to go.
There was no point.
The story is in the cheeseburger.
Tell me about the cheeseburger.
That is the most perfect metaphor I could ever
is.
think of like, there's more to the story.
There's more to this story.
That is a great story. Ugh.
Okay, we're wrapping up here. I wish we could hear all your stories, but what's your most valuable life lesson to date that you would share with somebody?
Let me dig through the archives of the mental Rolodex here. I think maybe you started just teeing it up. I think that it's that kindness matters. Like that, whatever our life journey is, whatever things we're dealing with, like there's no excuse for letting that wreck our lives and letting it wreck other people's lives. Like the trials that we get are there to teach us something. So I don't know if that's the most articulate thing, but I do like the idea of bringing it back to the kindness space, because I feel so empowered by that vibe, just assuming that people have a lot going on in life, and a little simple positive moment for someone at a random point of their day will create a ripple for whoever else they interact with or whatever they might have needed in that moment. And I just like to fight challenges with niceness and give lots of love to stuff that is hard.
I love this. How do people, what's your website?
Improvteamculture.com.
Improvteamculture.com, one word. And they schedule right there.
Yeah, they can find all the goodies there.
Everything there.
Yep,
Everything
team
you need,
stuff,
sign
speaker
up.
stuff, yep. Yeah, that's fun, and the world needs more yes and.
Is MFG on there?
It's on my wall. I should put it on there somewhere. I'm surprised I haven't had it tattooed yet. I guess it's not too late.
You got another sleeve to go here.
I know, I still have a lot of groundwork to cover here.
Megan, this was awesome. I
Thank you.
I
It's a
appreciate
pleasure.
you coming on, and you're clearly a super kind and driven person to make a difference in people's lives. We need more of this, and anything we can do to help spread the love here, bringing people together. And it sounds like you're already everywhere we are. Like, it sounds like mostly you're like helping all these businesses and making a
working on it.
difference.
I know there's 8 billion people on this planet, and I've touched just a small fraction, so I'm going to do my best to
I love it.
bring it till my dying day.
Thank you very much for
Thanks
being
for
here.
having
Thanks
me.
for your example. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.